Hi everyone, it's Dr. Janet here. I am going to go over your LP2 seminar assessment, mostly on the strategic planning side. So if you can just bear with me a moment, I'm going to open a PowerPoint presentation that I found because it pretty much covers everything that we're going to be going over. And I will just say first and foremost, just ignore the format of this. It's a pretty crude PowerPoint presentation, and I mean crude in the way of, there are some formatting errors that I would definitely have fixed before I put this out there on the internet. But anyway, just moving forward, I want to go over, again, this is for LP2 seminar assessment. You're to write a maximum 500-word essay, or short paper, I should say, where you're going to include your references. Your references do not count towards your word count. Don't worry, a maximum of 500 words is quite easy to hit, as long as you respond to the questions. And I will say that as you discuss in your paper, please do not post the questions. Instead, write your answers in paragraph form, and then find your source, whether you use your course material or outside source of information. So like for the first one, you're going to discuss the importance of strategic planning and why so many projects fail to meet their goals. Then the next paragraph you would discuss says, how does inconsistent processes, lack of coordination of resources, and disparate tools and methodologies impact portfolio management? And then the third paragraph would discuss how does effective project management mitigate these issues. You'll discuss the elements of a well-designed project program acceptance criteria. And again, it is a maximum of 500 words, so as long as you address those three questions in 3-paragraph format and use your citations, everything will be fine. Please always refer to the rubric, because most of our course assignments require a certain amount of resources that you will use. For example, our assignments require that you have very, very limited, if any, quotes. Instead of quoting an author, please just paraphrase what the author is saying, scale it down, change it around, get the same meaning across, and then still provide the citation and list your source on your reference list and your reference page. We don't want to use too many quotes, because again, using quotations will raise your plagiarism score, and we want to avoid that. Also, please remember, don't include your running head. You don't need that on your paper. It's going to also increase your plagiarism score, and we want to try and keep that low. If you notice when you upload your paper, if you notice that your title sheet may be highlighted because maybe you're repeating the school's name, or the name of the project or anything like that, feel free to remove your title page. I don't require that in this class. I'm looking more for your content. I'm looking to make sure that you are following the instructions, including the right amount of content. And so moving forward, I'm going to go over these slides on strategic planning. Now the objectives, we're going to go over the importance of strategic planning, the steps involved in developing a strategic plan, and staying competitive. And now that we're about midway into our real week number 11 in the BSG simulation game, you should already have this pretty well down. Hopefully you're getting more familiar with entering your numbers, selecting your numbers from your drop-down menus, and when next Monday comes, I'll be posting, where everybody placed in their industries. So this is right on target with what this class is all about, with strategies and policies. Now the standard says complete included questions to assess your transfer of training. You've got an icebreaker, introduce yourself. If you have a time machine, it would be only once. Where in the future or past would you travel, and why? So again, it's a strategy, just for an icebreaker. Now, the introduction, you have a begin lesson. You're going to discuss a great change leader. If you have not already noticed, in our discussion board area for LP2, also within our course content, and for our news feed, I post videos as well. Oops, excuse me for judging that. And so these videos are kind of posted throughout the course material to help you, and they go along with the material. For example, in LP2, when we're talking about the role of the project manager, for your case study that you're going to be doing your YouTube video presentation on for the new CIO, which is out of your case study book, I posted a video there that kind of goes over what change management is all about. And then again, on your newsfeed, there's another video, and then in your discussion board, there are 2 other videos that relate to each of those topics. Everything in the LP ties together, so hopefully those videos will kind of help bring it all together for you. So moving along, after we discuss a great change leader, we take a break, end of lesson, refresh, and then we've got questions. So moving ahead, what is strategic planning? Strategic planning is an organization's process of defining its strategy or direction and making decisions on allocating its resources to pursue this strategy. So you ask, what do you want to do? How do we best excel? Excuse me. Where do we want the company to be? Where are you headed? What's your vision and your mission? What are your goals for your company? And step 1, you're going to gather all the facts. When making decisions, it's always best to have the maximum amount of information available. You're going to always, always, always refer to your SWOT analysis. I don't care if I'm teaching marketing, business, anything relating to business, always review your SWOT analysis. That is your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats. So just in case you're not familiar with your SWOT analysis, the S and the W for your strengths and weaknesses, those are focused from what comes from within your corporation and within your company internally. Your opportunities and your threats, are the external. What opportunities are out there among the industry, among your competitors? What opportunities can you take advantage of? Is there something your competitor is not doing very well that you can take their weakness and maybe turn that into your strength? When you look at the threats, what is out there that's threatening your business? And for example, if I refer to the business strategy game, we know that our industry is overly saturated because we have 23 students, which means we have 23 companies. Therefore, you have 23, or actually 22 competitors, because you are one company. You have 22 competitors that are in your same industry. So you have to be extremely competitive. You have to constantly be looking at where can you have an opportunity. If you see in your game that your competitors at the end of this year, when you go in on Monday and you see where everybody placed, maybe you can reduce your production of your shoes in one area and pick up production in another area. So, just looking at things like that, that's all part of your SWOT analysis. Now, you're going to gather your inputs from your stakeholders, your company performance analysis of your organization. Now, again, referring to your business strategy game simulation, all that's going to be pre-calculated for you as you select your numbers and all of your other figures that you need to make the decisions on how your company is hopefully going to be progressing and producing shoes. You will look at the internal and external limitations, again, going back to your SWOT analysis, your social and economic trends. Among the most useful tools for strategic planning is SWOT analysis, internal and external of the organization, as I actually mentioned earlier, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, the 4 key elements are going to be your vision, your mission, your values, and your strategy. Every company should have these, because you need to have something that everybody in the company, all the employees, can look to. Because if you put together a company and nobody knows where your company is planning, and I mean, if you're a president of a company and it's your It's been your dream to have this company. If you don't share your idea, what your goals are and your vision and your mission, don't expect your employees to do well, because they're not going to see your same vision unless you share it with them. And this way, when you go to a lot of larger corporations, and it'd be nice to see more smaller companies doing the same thing, you may see a company mission statement up on a wall, or their vision or their goals. Get it up on your website, get it on your social media, let your consumers know what it is that what's your company about. Explain, it helps explain why why they should even consider you as a company, for buying your product or using your service. So you're gonna, as it says here, you're gonna sell your vision. Why is it important to make sure other individuals understand the purpose and future gains of the strategic change? Organization action strategy. Change may be outlined by few, but cannot be achieved without working together as a whole. Develop clearly written objectives for each department to implement. The objectives listed must be reviewed by upper management, adjusted if needed, and then finalized before the documents are sent to each department. Again, like I said, someone else created this PowerPoint. It's not as fine-tuned as it really should be, because technically your bullet points should be very short and to the point. Keep all the rest of the words down in your notes, so everybody doesn't have to be reading them with you. So, great change leader, of course, everybody knows Steve Jobs, and everybody knows of Apple. There you go, the Apple. Simple. Break. So now this is where they have a break, and we're not going to take one. So, how long should your goals take to reach? Strategic planning process usually takes anywhere from 1 month to 3 months to complete. There are long-term objectives, there's short-term goals and milestones, and a 90-day double check. And of course, with the strategic planning process, this class kind of intersects with the other class that I have, which is the strategy and policy class. I mentioned that earlier because they do overlook, they do go into the strategies. But it's the same thing that you're going through here in project management, because a lot of this stuff overlaps. You're still talking about a business at the end of the day, and all of these, with this strategic planning process that they're showing here, it just intersects with each other. We have benchmarking. Benchmarking is used when setting standards and goals for your organization. You ask why benchmark. Those who fail to plan to fail. And if you just don't plan it, you just might as well expect to fail. You can't just happen without some kind of thought process and action being taken. And here it's got the U.S. Post Office. Where were they 30 years ago? Where were they 15 years ago, 5 years ago, and today? Now, one area that I can think of off the top of my head when you look at the post office is maybe people are not sending as much mail. For example, when you think about birthdays, everybody has a birthday, everybody was born, and we used to mail actual birthday cards, and there used to be a lot more, Hallmark card shops, things like that around. Well, with the digital era coming up, a lot of company leaders really just didn't pay attention. They didn't take a strategic approach. When you look at the post office, for example, a lot of postal service has been trying to keep up. Excuse me. They've been trying to do more things in a digital manner, and in the process of trying to keep up, they work with different companies where you can buy your postage, even at a discounted rate, like through stamps.com. Or if you happen to have an Etsy shop, you get discounted postage that goes through the post office, but you can purchase it through Etsy. So, so the post office started making agreements with different vendors to remain relevant with consumers, because if they hadn't, And even though they were kind of slow to get moving in towards the digital era, they still are adapting. So when you kind of look back to how 30 years ago, everything was going through the post office. So we didn't have the digital world that we have now. But then 15 years ago, when I think back, it was kind of starting to change there. But then 5 years ago, definite big change in the digital world, and even today. So when you look at the post office as this example shows, what strategies were put into place, and how can you remain relevant? And this is where you have to constantly plan your strategies. You have to try to remain competitive. And who's the post office competitive against? Well, the post office is competitive with the internet. They're competitive with social media. If going back to birthdays and birthday cards, for example, if you're not a person that goes out and buys postage and buys a birthday card, even if you go to the Dollar Tree or dollar store or whatever, if you're not mailing it through the post office, maybe you're wishing somebody happy birthday on social media. So right there, post office is losing business because people found another way to address that. It's quick, it's efficient, the recipient gets it right away. If you go back to thinking of the post office when, there has been a high amount of theft where, checks and cash that were mailed to people have been stolen, whether it was a postal worker or if it was somebody getting into a mailbox and taking it, it still falls onto the postal service to bear the responsibility and have to deal with all the risk management. I can think to when I didn't have a package delivered when it was supposed to be delivered, and so I had reported it lost. And that was, probably the beginning of this year. And I'd say probably every maybe 2 or 3 months, I get an email telling me that the post office still has not located my package, and they just continue to look. Well, I finally got the package, but there's no way for me to let the post office know I got it. So something is broken internally in their system where, they give you the ability to report that you have a package that's lost, but then they have no way to have you reply when they send an email or contact them and say, hey, you finally did deliver the package. I got it 2 months late, but you still keep on emailing me telling me you still haven't found my package. So there's, their checks and balances are not, so completely together there. Now, if you review, if we look at the overall strategic plan process, again, we're going to gather the facts. We're going to review the SWOT analysis, review the inputs, look at the strategic matrix, define the strategies, review and adjust. And being that you are working, you already had 2 practice years of the business strategy game simulation, and you're already halfway into your very first real year. Hopefully this makes a little bit more sense, and maybe you can see why we have you into the business strategy game. So under our gather the inputs, you're going to be gathering all the stakeholders, your customer analysis, your competitor analysis, industry analysis, environmental, company performance, company strategies. Does it sound familiar to your simulation that you've been working on? Because it should. And then your SWOT analysis, you have your external analysis, which are your opportunities and threats, as I mentioned in the beginning. Your internal analysis, which are your strengths and weaknesses. Where's your company strong? Where is it weak? Maybe your customer service is strong. Maybe your customer service is weak. Maybe your mailroom is lacking in sending products out if you're shipping, if you have an internet store, for example. Things like that fall into that category. Also under the SWOT analysis, these are strategic questions and strategic issues. Under your review inputs, we've got all the stakeholders. That's internal and external. You review the inputs, review your SWOT analysis. You define your 3 to 4 key statements. Again, your vision, mission, your goals. What are they? What is it that makes your company unique? What is it that you want everybody to know and your employees to know, and your potential customers and your vendors to know? And that's what comes from defining your key statements. Your strategic matrix, again, it's all your stakeholders. Again, you're going to address your SWOT analysis. You're going to look at your opportunities versus your strengths. What opportunities are available to you to maybe take over the market or improve your market reach on your product or your service versus your strengths? You have strengths in your company. So what are those when you compare them? The same thing, you compare your opportunities with your weaknesses, and your threats versus your strengths, and your threats versus your weaknesses. A threat, again, remember, threats are external. So going back to the Postal Service, if you've shipped something out and the Postal Service doesn't deliver it, it's kind of like, the Postal Service is the one at fault because they're the one that lost the package. Hopefully there was insurance to cover. But at the same time, the company that the person bought the product from is also going to blame the company and probably never return to you again because they're just, that feeling of trust is broken. So now that, maybe that had been a strength in your company, getting, your packages out quickly, and people know your company for that, but then if the post office loses your package and doesn't get to your customer, well, that strength you had in your company is now a threat because it was something outside of your control, something external. Same thing with weather, the weather, environmental things like that, government rules, regulations. Those are all threats. Those are things that are outside of your control, but you still have to be aware of them because they do come up and they can affect your business. When we go to define your strategies, you look at the objectives, your key strategies, the short and long-term goals, and your operational plans. And then at the final stage, we have review and adjust. So the final reviews, again, it's involving all your stakeholders. You review your strategies, review your goals, review the plans, and then you adjust those as necessary. So I'm going to stop this video right here because I'm not going to need to ask you questions since I'm posting this video. So anyway, hopefully this helps go over what is involved in strategic planning. So you can go ahead and review the video. Make sure that you use your sources of information. Even if you know how to define terms, please find an outside source of information to where you can actually use that to help back up your claim, because the last thing that you want or should want is for anybody to not take you as having credible writing. And when we provide our outside sources, it just gives proof that we've done our research, which is what we're doing, and it just makes your writing more credible. And it also gives credit back to the original author that you may have reviewed, even if it is that you use our course book. But I hope that most of you will go outside of the course material, use the NAU library, connect the NAU library to Google Scholar, because Google Scholar also goes, to libraries elsewhere. They have a global library. And when you look for your sources of information, I would just recommend trying to find sources that are within the last 5 years, if possible. When you're talking about a certain theory or methodology, those are understandably, you may, it may be something that's 20 or 30 years old, and that's fine. But things do evolve over time when you're talking about certain methodologies, and maybe strategies are, they improve. So try to find something, and on Google Scholar you can actually look for something that's within the last 5 years, and libraries do the same thing electronically. And So hopefully that'll help you guys. And, you know, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm always kind of lurking around the classroom, and I try to get back to you as soon as possible. And I thank you guys for bearing with the changes here at the university, but everything, trust me, everything is being done for your betterment as a student and as a writer and researcher. And so when we, you know, try to enforce APA writing style, you know, it's not to be difficult, but it is to help you to encourage you intellectually, and you know, to help boost you up and, you know, into a better student, better writer. When this is finally all said and done, you should be pretty thankful that, you know, that you had the opportunity, because, you know, everybody hopefully is here to learn, and you know, education is so important. Anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the classroom. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.